Hello, Wand Stars, and welcome to your General Energies reading whenever and wherever this finds you. Today I have my 5 piles in front of me, and I'm just going to go over what each one of them is. So in the middle here we have our spirit pile, so that's for everybody because we are all spirit and spirit is us. In the north here we have our earth pile. Over here in the east we have our air. In the south is our fire pile, and over here in the west we have our water pile. Okay, so I'm just going to take and set these guys aside to give us a little bit more room for our first pile. Okay. So right away I'm looking at the Two of Swords in our Dragon Tarot here, and that tells me that there's a bit of a balancing act that needs to happen. So let's find out what that balancing act is and why it's necessary. Okay? So if you've ever heard me talk about Lenormand cards before or got a reading from me, you know that the Clover, like I've said before, is one of the best cards you can get in the deck. And the fish is probably one of the second or third best cards you can get in the deck. So right away this says to me that a lot of people have finally kind of broken through that last little piece of resistance that some of us were still experiencing. And we're actually starting to see a lot of fruition as to what it is we have been working towards. So the Clover, though, still says it's kind of one of those ones where it's a quick luck. So it's something that's it's really good, and paired with the fish, fish is about prosperity and good fortune and wealth and money and just all of those things that we've been working towards. But the Clover is kind of one of those ones where it's like, this is kind of a quick fix type of a thing. So if we move over to the other side here, we have our bouquet and we have the mountains. So what that tells me is, yes, you have your abilities and your gifts and your traits that you are able to bring into the world, but there is still a little bit of work to be done. There's still not all the pieces are quite in place yet to fully appreciate this that's coming in. So this is kind of something that not necessarily fleeting, but there is a little bit more work that has to be done in order for us to be able to get a little bit more of this for a longer period of time. So that, I think that's where the Two of Swords comes into play, because the Two of Swords is like a balance between our daydream selves and our practical selves. So when we daydream, we have a tendency to forget that there is still some stuff that we have to do, and we go drifting off into the nether sphere, and we imagine all the grandeur and all the wonderful things that are coming, and we forget to recognize that we still might have one or two things that we have to put into place before this actually becomes that daydream that we've been thinking of, right? So it is something that is coming in the forefront. Like, we are recognizing that we're getting a little bit, there's a little bit more push for good things coming our way, because we finally, like I said, got rid of that last little piece of resistance. And there's still a little bit more that needs to fit into place before we get a lasting amount. So this is quick luck. So a little bit more needs to be put in place before we get a lasting amount of wealth and prosperity, rather than this quick fix that's happening. Okay, so that's the Spirit deck, and now I'm going to move on to the Earth deck. Now, if you're drawn to Earth, Earth is about practicality, about putting things into place. So if we're talking about that monetary wealth, or those things that we can do or we can implement in our lives to help us to recognize that this is something that needs some support. So we've got these 3 cards here. Now the Earth deck, and I believe it was the Fire deck, only had 3 cards in them. But that's not bad. That's just, it means that, you know, the information is just right there. Okay, so we have the playing, we have the shoes, and we have burying. Okay, So playing can be a gamble. It can be something that is also a game. So it's paired with shoes and burying. So I feel like if you're a little too practical, you might be feeling like you're forced to take the fun aspects of what you do and kind of put them on the back burner. But what this is calling you to do is like, the shoes are about, just go and do it and see where your shoes take you, see where the path leads you. And when you have the playing, it is a little bit of a gamble. So this is kind of calling you, if you chose the Earth deck, usually you don't like to gamble. You like things to be kind of, I like to have a plan in place and I like to follow that plan. I don't like to not know what's going on, but this is saying you maybe have to open up a little bit more to that, because with the burying card, you have a propensity to take the enjoyment out of what you're doing just because you're like, well, I can't enjoy this if I have to stay practical. But there is a balance of two. So we have that balance card that was in the spirit deck. So this is calling you, this is the challenge for the Earth deck, is to call you to remember to add a little bit more play into your life. Remember that it's okay not to have a plan sometimes. As much anxiety as that might cause you, sometimes the way that we plan things isn't what the universe has in store for us. And sometimes we can't see how great the plan is when we try and compartmentalize it into what we know in our known universe. Right? So this is saying, come out of your comfort zone just a little bit more, and remember that it's okay to have fun. It's okay to have a little bit of joy in your life, even if it's something that needs to remain practical, or even if it's something that is work related. So it's okay to have fun when you're doing your job. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to move on to the Eastern deck, which is air. So air is more about fluidity, inspiration. It's like that go with the flow kind of thing. So if you chose this deck, let's see what we've got for you. So right off the bat, we have the Fools. So beginning new journeys. We have the Monks, the Nine of Wands, Dancing, and Fire. So I'm just going to flip this guy around for you guys so you can see it better. So the Fool is the beginning of journeys. So if we've kind of gotten rid of that last little piece of resistance, like I said in the Spirit deck, this is kind of calling us to recognize in ourselves that we are just learning how to become a new person, which is kind of solidified by the Monks. Because the Monks can be one of those things where it's like we are questioning our beliefs. We are questioning what we were taught, or what we believed unconditionally without thinking about it. So the Monks is saying, hey, it's good to have beliefs, but with the Fool beginning out in this journey, it's like, is this really the way that you want to continue living your life? Is this the way that you really want to go? And then we also have the Nine of Wands. Now, the Nine of Wands, if you actually look at the card, so if you take a look at what the Nine of Wands is, it's the dragon is climbing up the stairs, and he has his sights set on his objective or what's coming. So the Nine of Wands calls us to say that there is some work to be done. So if you selected this pile, it's like, even though that last little bit of resistance to what you have been hanging on to has finally lifted, there's a lot more work that needs to be involved in how you incorporate what's going on in your life. And because it's an air deck, it's just kind of more about allowing things to happen or allowing new ideas to present themselves. And instead of closing yourself off to those new ideas, try and kind of work them around in your brain a little bit. So you might be one of those people that's like, no, this is the way that I believe it to be, and it's great that you have your opinion, but this is my opinion. Instead of being so closed off to other people's opinions, this is calling you to say that it's time to kind of recognize that there is more out there. And we also have the dancing and we have the fire. So dancing is about movement. It is that fluidity. It's a partnership. Usually we don't necessarily dance with ourselves. I mean, I do when I'm by myself, but this one is saying like there is a partnership involved, and the partnership is actually between you and the universe, or you and God, you and source. So it's coming to recognize that the relationship that you had in the past is expanding, it's growing, it's becoming something new. And it's wonderful because I get a sense that it was such a narrow world view for you that this is kind of scary, but at the same time, you're a little bit excited about learning what you can from the experiences that you've gone through. And when we look at the fire is about that spark of creativity. It can be very beautiful, but it can also be destructive. So destruction is not bad, because in destruction you can create new things. So this is saying, it's like, yeah, it's just like tear down all those things that you believed about the world without thinking, the beliefs that other people instilled in you. Come up with your own set of rules for yourself, because you're the only person that knows what is best for you, right? So yeah, this is a bit of a heavy group, but I think that you're up to the challenge, and I really think that this is something that is going to bring you into a headspace where, when we looked at the spirit deck, we had that fortune, we had all of that stuff. So the mountain for you is kind of going through all of those beliefs that you, like I said, unquestioningly believed. Woo, that was a mouthful. Hi, kitty. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next deck, and I'm just going to put Miss Millie Brown on the floor there. So the next deck that we have is the one that was in the south. So this is the fire deck. If you chose this, fire is that spark of creativity. You might actually be an artist, or you could be one of the fire signs. Who knows, right? So this was one of the other decks that only had 3 cards in it. But like I said, that's not a bad thing. It's very concise in what you need to know. So we have the 6 of Cups, we have the Page of Swords, and again we have the Fool. But the Fool comes to the end. So it feels like there might be a little bit of stuff going on first before we can finish what we started, or we can start something new. So when we talk about the 6 of Cups and we talk about the Page of Swords together. Now, I say we, I mean me, because I interpret cards differently, especially tarot cards, than a lot of people. So if you're a tarot reader and you're confused by what I'm doing, it's because I'm not reading them traditionally. Okay? So it feels like there is a choice that needs to be kind of made. The Page of Swords tends to be a little bit impulsive, doesn't really think things through, and as a result, with the 6 of Cups, it's a little bit of about family and relationships and about our social circles. It feels like if there wasn't a decision that was already made, it's about to be made, and it's one of those ones, like I said, the Page of Swords is a very emotional, makes decisions at the snap of a finger or the drop of a hat, and doesn't necessarily always think things through. So it feels like your social circle or the people that you relate to might actually be changing. So I'm not sure why that plays a part in what we said about spirit, because we're talking about like releasing our resistance, but there's also, like I said, the balance in there. So we had the Two of Swords saying you have to kind of make, not really a choice, but you have to balance between the two. So I think maybe a lot of those rash decisions that you've made in the past might have ended up negatively impacting your social circle. It might have negatively impacted those relationships that you have. And it's calling you to, like the Fool, set out in a new path. So I almost feel like sometimes you might not necessarily take ownership or full ownership of the part that you play. And it's not that you don't understand that you have played a part in it. I think it has more to do with, well, I was angry at the time, and so that's why I did that. But you have to take it a step further and go, why was I angry? And why did I feel at the time that that was the right decision? Right? So it's, I guess, less about taking ownership and more about analyzing why you make so many snap decisions that either negatively affect your life or the lives of others, and kind of come to a recognition that you're entering a new time in your life where that is no longer acceptable. So the Fool is saying you kind of have to step out a little bit. You're on a new journey of self-discovery, and it begins with you being able to take ownership and being able to understand how properly to not necessarily control who you are, but come at it from a little bit more of an understanding of other people rather than what's happening in this very moment. So taking a step back, being the casual observer rather than making snap choices, making snap decisions. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only thing that's really coming through for this group. It's just like I mean, it's kind of like a chill the F out. It's like, it's okay if things take a little bit of time. You don't have to feel like you always need to be on the offensive. Yeah. Um, but yeah, again, with the Fool, it's kind of saying that you've already kind of figured it out a little bit. You've already started to realize that, hey, wait, maybe it is a little bit more, the onus is on me a little bit more than I allowed myself to think in the past. So yeah, you've already kind of felt this. You already kind of know. I don't need to browbeat you about it. So we're going to set this aside and we're going to work on our last deck, which is our water deck in the West. Now, water is nurturing. Water is about the fluidity of life. Water gives birth to all kinds of things. It gives life to all kinds of things. I'm not sure why my camera is doing that weird pulsing thing. I apologize. Okay, so let's get right into it and see what we've got for these guys. The Tower and the Falls, the Stairs, the Magician, and the Four of Wands. So for you guys, if you chose this group, there may have been a very big upheaval in your lives, so that piece of resistance that you were experiencing feels like your entire life has crumbled down around your ears. And again, with the Falls, we're talking, if you think about the power of falls, how the water cascades over you. We have the Stairs. We have, again, another heavy group where this is all kind of feeling very overwhelming. Now, if we talk about the Spirit deck that we had, where there's a little bit of a reprieve from what's going on. So not all days are bad days, but it feels like there is a lot of pressure, a lot of strain. But because you have the Tower as your very first card, it means that everything's kind of fallen apart down around your ears, but we have some water. We have that there is a set of stairs that can come up. You know, you can walk up from this. There is, even though you feel like you might have hit rock bottom, the stairs go up. I mean, the people are walking up those stairs. It's, yeah, it feels like you're coming out of the other side of all of this turmoil. And again, we have the Magician. The Magician comes after the Fool. So you've already, the Fool is the beginning of the path. The Magician is kind of coming into your own. So you're still, it's still fresh, it's still new, but you're finally kind of realizing that even though all of this stuff happened and you're coming up out of the pit, you're starting to notice that a lot of the stuff that got pulled from your life, a lot of the stuff that has been ripped away or been tossed aside, was to reveal your true self, was to reveal how special and how powerful you were, because you were buried under all of this other stuff from all of these other people and things in your life, that until they disappeared, you weren't able to see who you really are. You weren't able to recognize your true worth and your true self. So we also have the Four of Wands, and I'll show you guys this one too. And so it's the dragon, and he's wrapped around the obelisk. Now, obelisks traditionally are sources of power. In Egyptian mythology, the obelisk was what focused the energy to contact the gods, right? So what we're saying here is that all of this stuff, no matter how difficult it may have been, and to a certain degree still is, because we also had the Mountain in the original deck, and it's like not all the pieces are quite in place yet. And for something like this, where it's a complete reversal or upheaval of your life, it's going to take some time for all the pieces to fit back together. But coming out the other side, it's saying that yes, you're recognizing that you have worth, you're recognizing who you really are, and it's gaining momentum, it's gaining power, and you've managed to see little glimpses of it through all this other stuff, right? So the stairs here is kind of telling me just keep pushing through, one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. You know, you've probably heard the famous quote from Lao Tzu, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with but a single step, right? So hopefully you're not going through 1,000, oh, hello kitty, thank you. Hopefully you're not going through 1,000 miles, but one step at a time, right? One thought at a time. And that's all you can really do. That's all you can really focus on. So I hope that, like I said, this is quite a heavy group. So I hope that you're going to recognize that it was all for your benefit, even though it might not feel like it just quite yet. Okay? So stick with it. You got this. And it's only going to get better from here. Okay? So that was all 5 of the decks. I hope you found a piece of information that really worked for you. There we go. Okay. If you guys would like a personal reading, I do personal readings and Cynthia does personal readings. You can visit our Facebook page, The Weekly Wand, or you can visit our website, www.theweeklywand.ca or .com, whichever one you want to look up. You'll find us. Okay, and we have a list of different services that we provide, as well as some other things that you might not expect. Okay, and the next live stream reading is on February 20th, so I look forward to seeing you guys there. I will have Cynthia with me on the 20th, and we'll be doing readings together. Okay, so as always, with love from the universe, this is the Weekly Wand, signing off. Namaste.